Welcome to Surf Studio. Surf Life Saving is filled with so many fantastic people and inspiring stories, and Surf Studio is designed to share some of these stories from across the country and across all areas of life saving. On this week's episode of Surf Studio, we head to Surfers Paradise on the Gold Coast, off the back of Father's Day, to chat to legendary Ironman Trevor Hendy about fatherhood and in particular what it meant to win an Aussie title with his son TJ. We head to Western Australia to chat to Mike Shaw and Matt Elliot from Fremantle SLSC to hear about their award-winning Multicultural Surf and Beach Safety Program. And finally, we take a look at the recently launched Deloitte Access Economics report, which outlines the social and economic value of surf life saving to the Australian community.
Then you look at some of the younger ones that came through that you coached, Nathan Meyer, Phil Clayton and the likes of racing Plain Ties. What was that like being in teams? And was there one particular team event that stands out for you?
I've had people like Grant Hackett in teams, and it's Taplin Relay, Craig Hackett, Corey Hutchings from New Zealand, so many different people along the way. Jay Gilbert, Jay Gilbert and Carla Gilbert were like brother and sister to me. So team events, so the one that stands out for me by a long shot is winning the Australian Board Rescue with TJ 5 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever that was, as a 46-year-old. So it must be 5 years ago. That's, I don't know if I'd call it a team event. I'd call it a family event. That's just far and away ahead of any Ironman race I ever won or anything else. It was such a beautiful, profoundly humbling experience to find our way to click on the day and to create that. So that was really cool.
Tell me a bit more about that day. Like you line up on the line and they're all young enough to be your sons, the majority of them there. And you go into the water. I think you went in the water around about 5th position and you've got to mow them down. How'd you feel?
Well, if you go back 8 weeks, we decided we were going to do it. And I'd been snow skiing for about a month overseas and traveling through Canada and the US with the rest of the family, and Tej had been home training. So I had to burn off all the carbs, and I was getting left behind in the canal by even the girls in the club, I was just really struggling. But I just knew that if I could wake up these cells that know how to race, I'd be good. So I actually did the Pete Evans Paleo Way course for 8 weeks and lost 8 kilos, and it was pretty cool. And I got to by the time we raced, actually at state championships, Tej and I were doing okay in different rounds. And I remember sprinting in and just tweaking my groin. I was like, slow back, save it for the Aussies. And we got 4th and 4th and 4th through the rounds, 4th in the quarterfinal, won the semi-final. And then in the final, we're racing against, these are our best surf swimmers in the country and our best Ironman and board paddlers in the country. And Tej actually got out 8th. So it's a part of the story is that the water was pushing in against him and Leon Zagel, who was also in our club, and Zach Orchard. And Zach is David Orchard's son. And so, my coach and idol and hero when I was younger, I'm racing with his son. And the two of them, they're in the middle because we won both semis. So we were getting pushed back in the middle. And when I got on the board, I just kind of no one else existed because my aim was, and it goes back to when TJ was born, I was a bit off track in my life. And when I held him for the first time, I thought I want to be a better man, a better person. And I kind of went through a whole personal life change for 20 years to find my way home, to find my way back to the caravan, to who I really am off the beaten track. And I did that. And now I'm in this race with my son. We'd already been crying on the start line because we couldn't believe we're in it together from joy. We're just so happy. We're just living the dream. And then Tej got out 8th. But it didn't matter because my mission for 8 weeks was just to pick him up as fast as I could and do the best job I could to set him up to, take me home, which is no different of the 20-year mission I'd been on to be a good dad for him. So I sprinted out, tapped into some other special little power, and because I shouldn't have had that much pace, and probably caught up to, I think I got up to about 3rd or 4th apparently. But then we got caught on the cans. I was trying to get over. I got caught, hit him in the head. We had the worst change, and I think we went back to 7th or 8th again, but picked him up. We both had a laugh and just said, don't worry about it. I remember the words forming in my mouth as a little run came up with TJ in the front, and the run was sort of beckoning us to go right with it, a tiny little chop, and the words formed in my mouth to say, go right, Tej. And before I could say it, he tilted his chest and tipped us right. And in that very moment, I had this thought, you've done it. Your son knows what to do. It's not your job anymore to tell him what to do. Let him take you home. So I just mimicked him. Every time he put his chin down and sped up, I put my chin in his butt and sped up. Every time he lifted his shoulders up because we were going to plough into a chop, I lifted my shoulders up with him. Every time he did long, slow strokes or put his arms out like an albatross, I just copied. And he turned us left, right, and steered us all the way from 8, 7, 6, 5th, 4th on the wave with 3rd, 2nd, 1st, stood up and just beat the Manly boys across the line by about 30 centimetres right at the last moment and won. And it was this ridiculous feeling because it didn't happen till it happened. It felt like it was never meant to happen, but it felt like it was totally meant to happen, you know, and it had nothing to do with perfection because we messed it up. It had everything to do with connection. And it was like a completion for me from a lifelong journey that my dad had started a long time before that, was to be brave enough to be yourself and follow your own dreams. And now my son was doing it, and that was his first gold medal. So we crossed the line, and my 3 heroes, Grant Kenny, Dwayne Tyes, and Mark Bennett, were all right there in front of me. And I just ran straight into them. They jumped on top of me and we're all laughing and everything else. And so it was this crazy, surreal moment. There was people, us included, but people from surf lifesaving families around the country with tears in their eyes because they knew something special had happened. And in a lot of ways, those people had looked after me and had my back right while I went through my challenging times. I always felt looked after by lifesaving. It was always my bigger family. And that just far and away outweighs any other experience because it was like life-saving family competition, but, you know, sort of like a renaissance, like coming through something all came together. It was a really powerful moment and a lot to do with love.
And with TJ, being a father and watching TJ now following your footsteps as a professional. I mean, I remember interviewing you for I think it was a radio interview we teed you up for last year at Aussies on the morning of the Australian final. You looked like you were going to go out there in the Australian final yourself. Like, obviously it must be challenging at times being the father and having to sit back and watch and guide TJ.
There's an old saying, you know, having kids is like having your heart walking around outside your body, you know, because you're so connected to your kids and it's such an amazing, incredible experience, humbling experience to have children at the moment. As a father, you hold your children, you know, I've been beautifully blessed with Christelle, TJ, Bailey and Charlie, you know, and 2 amazing relationships along the way. And I'm blown away that I get to experience these things with my kids in different ways and watch them grow up. But because I've learned so much myself, I'm able to let go of the need to win or perform mostly. But I feel so connected to their desire to do well, you know. And having TJ race so well, he's won a round of Nutrigrain and he led the Aussie Ironman last year right up to that last little moment. Like, he just about had it, you know, led the last round of the Nutrigrain series this year really strongly all day. And in those moments, I feel like it's like I'm racing outside of my own body, you know. It's the weirdest experience. And I've tried to commentate for that a couple of times and it's so hard, you know. So, but the amazing thing is I'm having that experience, but so's Matt Poole's father and Ali Day's mum and dad and, you know, Matt Bevilacqua's parents and Courtney Hancock's and Georgia Miller's and everybody out there, you know, Max Beattie's family, all these people that I'm close, they're all around me. They all live around me and or in my club, you know, and they're all going through the same stuff, you know. So to see Max Brooks win last year, you know, and then to see his old man walk up and just look at him and go, oh my God, well done, you know, because it's not our achievement, but you're so happy for your son that they've ticked a goal that makes everything worthwhile. You know, it's a really surreal experience, but it all goes back to family. It goes back to connection to lifesaving.
Today on Surf Studio, we are so excited to have with us today, all the way from Fremantle, it's Matt Elliot and Mike Shaw. Welcome to the program, gents.
Hi, Jenny. Hi, thank you.
Now, we've brought you along today to tell us about this amazing multicultural program that you've developed. How did this all get started?
Well, it was a friend of mine that I was speaking to, and she was involved in a Fremantle Multicultural Centre, where it was introducing families into the community that had come through immigration. and she was saying that a lot of them didn't know much about the beach. The language wasn't too strong. So we started off with families coming down to do this beach awareness program, and then it grew from there.
So you've both been involved in the club since 2008. This is such a revolutionary program that you've put together.
Well, we didn't start out by devising this program. It was an opportunity that was given to us, and we've allowed it to grow, and it's grown its own natural pathway. As Matt said, we started with the Multicultural Centre for a couple of years, and then we branched out and went over to a couple of the schools that have intensive English class units attached to them. And I guess where the program has taken us, rather than starting with the adults and the parents, we're now dealing more with the kids. And the idea is that the kids are very amenable to learning, and it would be fantastic if the kids could take their knowledge home, teach the parents, and all of a sudden everyone starts being safer on the beach.
Now, tell me a little bit more about the program. It's classroom and beach skills, is that right?
Yeah, so we started off with just doing beach awareness down at Leighton Beach. So we'd spend an hour or so with all the students to go through the surf club, showcasing some of the equipment that we have, and then we'd go down to the beach, show what a normal patrol looks like, the setup, the flags, telling them about swimming between the flags. It's quite hard because a lot of them don't speak English too well, and some have interpreters there to help us. And then that's just grown, where Mike's then put into a program in going to schools.
There was an awful lot of stuff we didn't cover when we were down on the beach, and so what we've done is we've taken that into the classroom. We've used that as a preparatory session to give them an idea of how to be sun safe, what do waves look like, what do rips look like, some of the dangerous critters in the ocean and so on. And we use that as a basis that when they then come down to the beach, some of the blocks start to fall in place a little bit better.
The program's been running for a little while now. Is this where you hoped that it would go, or the change that you were hoping to see in your local community?
I think it grows on its own, like Mike was saying. We implemented getting school children from local schools to help out in doing these programs. We found out that the students were more interacting with like-minded aged group members of the surf club. So we would ask members of the surf club that went to CBC or Iona schools to join. And some of the things that they got out of it was amazing. You know, they would go and interact with these students that have come all the way from another country through the immigration system, and hear stories of what they had to do, how they had to get here. And then they would come back and be absolutely amazed.
Yeah. There's learning on both sides. You know, the recent immigrant kids learn a little bit of surf skills. And as Matt said, it's just amazing to watch these young kids who start out being too timid to put a toe in the water, to then standing in ankle deep water, to standing in knee deep water, and all of a sudden Matt's got them on rescue boards and they're catching waves back in. So, and the smiles are a foot wide.
You know, we've talked about the smiles, we've talked about the differences that you're making in the community. Is there any particular moment or experience that really stands out to you that makes you really proud to be involved in a program like this?
Well, there's one that I remember from a few years ago. We had a school visit that was broken into two halves. One half came down in the morning, stayed for lunch, and then the other half came down after lunch. And one of the young kids who came from Iran did the morning session. He had never seen the ocean before, had practiced swimming in a pool, so he was quite a competent swimmer. But he hid in the change rooms through the lunch period and then waited for the second group to arrive so that he could come out and do it all again in the afternoon.
Yeah. My experience of that one was a very good one. There's many. I mean, the smiles you get, but there was the girls that have never been able to be down the beach. You know, you go up to them and say, "Would you like to be going to go into the water?" They sort of go, "Oh, I don't know." They start putting their feet in there. They start getting a bit wet. Next thing they know, they're fully covered, and you can't take them out. The hardest thing is having to blow the whistle and saying, "That's it, guys. You've got to get out of the water," and they just don't want to get out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you were to look 5 years into the future, how do you see the program growing, or what are your dreams for what it could turn into?
There is all these immigration areas or schools that have got children that have come over and learning the English language all around Australia. So, whether it's on the beach, surf clubs picking up the program, a similar program, or even if it's a community inland, they do it near the river or creeks, and it just expands around Australia. It's a very simple, easy program that benefits not just these kids, but also the surf lifesavers as well that's involved. So seeing that grow, I don't think is going to be too hard to do. And then being able to get these children just to learn about the beach, to see these kids go into the water for the first time is amazing. It's the biggest smile I've ever seen.
So just in Perth, we're currently dealing with 2 schools. We've had interest from a 3rd school, and currently there are about another 5 schools that have these units attached that we could branch it out to. So we've got a lot of scope to just increase it within our little area here, let alone, as Matt says, moving further afield.
I love it. It's so fantastic to hear. And I understand that congratulations are in order as well. The program recently took out Surf WA's Community Program of the Year. You must be chuffed to get that sort of recognition as well.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't do that for those accolades. It's great to be acknowledged. We'd just like to see this program grow over time. We've had a few surf clubs locally asking about the program, and look, if it could roll out Australia-wide and help out this sort of community, it'd be fantastic.
And the other side is we've had a couple of nibbles of interest from corporates who see what we're doing and say, this is something that we would love to support. How can we help you out? So whilst money is always useful, it's not necessarily money that we need, but we continue to look for ways to develop and improve the program. If we can get some additional equipment and offer some naming rights, then I think everyone gets a win-win.
You must love being members of Freo, and obviously you'd have the whole club behind this. It must be such a beautiful thing that you can offer to all the other clubbies as well. Yeah,
look, we're a very family-orientated club. We're quite competitive, but we're more family-orientated. It's a nice place to be, like any surf club. You can go anywhere in the world or anywhere in Australia and to any surf club. They're always very friendly places. But yeah, it's really good to bring in some of the younger kids, be involved in these particular awareness programs, and they're using that to put on their resumes. They're getting so much out of it that they experience something that is for their life. So
and the other thing about Leighton Beach is it's a very benign environment. We have quite chuckles in WA about Leighton surf. It's a very easy place to bring the kids down. They're not going to get smashed by waves. They're not going to get sucked out by rips. So everybody feels very safe.
It feels like the perfect program at the perfect beach for the perfect community.
Yeah,
that's it.
You've nailed it.
Matt and Mike, thank you so much for joining us here today on Surf Studio. It has been such a delight hearing about this program at Fremantle. We wish you all the best for the summer season and just can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate your interest.
Thank you very much.
Surf Life Saving Australia is Australia's peak coastal water safety body. Through its life-saving education and recreational activities, Surf Life Saving Australia generates significant social and economic benefits for the community. Deloitte Access Economics was recently engaged to estimate this value. Here are some of the key findings. For every $1 invested in Surf Life Saving Australia, a return of $20 is achieved. Surf Life Saving Australia generates a total net benefit to the Australian community of $6.5 billion a year. Surf Life Saving Australia's coastal and life-saving services are valued at $6.1 billion a year. 1 in 5 surf lifesavers have used their CPR skills in a medical emergency in the broader community. Each year, more than 294,000 hours of life is expected to be saved as a result of CPR training provided by Surf Life Saving. 1 in 4 of our members say their training has assisted them to secure paid employment. Interventions performed by Surf Life Savers or Australian Lifeguard Services lifeguards result in more than 1,300 avoided fatalities and 800 avoided critical injuries each year. 90% of our members say that being a part of their Surf Life Saving Club assists them to positively contribute to their community. Our volunteers spend more than 16.4 million hours each year volunteering for surf life saving. Our members are 22% more physically active than the average Australian adult. The Surf Life Saving Australia value to the nation is immense. With your support, we look forward to continuing to save lives, create great Australians, and build better communities.
The Australian Surf Life Saver, besides being iconic, we're out there to protect the beaches, to ensure that the public that go down to our beaches are safe. We're also concerned that we make sure that we prevent drownings, and that's a lot of the work we do around preventative actions. So our Surf Life Savers have contributed over 1.3 million volunteer hours every year on our beaches to keep the public safe. What Deloitte has shown is the actual economic contribution of surf life saving to the Australian community is $6.5 billion a year. It's made up of a combination of our frontline services and the economic value of that. It's also around our training and education. It's around physical activity, and it's also on the social value of our surf life saving movement. And for every dollar invested, Deloitte shows that there's a $20 return on that investment. Well, Deloitte's very clear on this. They're saying that if we weren't there on the front line, there'd be 1,300 avoidable deaths. That's a large number. And also 800 critical avoidable incidents or injuries, which includes near-fatal drownings. It'll show to the Australian community what the economic value is of surf life saving, and it's made up of that combination: 6.1 billion of our frontline services, there's 500 million in social capital, and about $150 million in education and training. A significant amount, and that's our contribution to the Australian community.
Thanks for watching Surf Studio. We would encourage you to get in touch with us to send through ideas or stories for future episodes. Contact the team via our social media channels or email us at surfstudio@slsa.asn.au.